Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Hangout. Money Matters. I've got guest Stacy Kildal. I hope I said that right.
Almost.
With us today. Almost. All right. I'll let you correct me. So we got a pretty good hangout here for you guys today. We're going to be talking, accounting, small business financing, all that kind of fun stuff. Stacy, I'll let you take the floor.
Well, thanks, Colby. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here to do this. And it's Kildal, so you got it almost right. At least you didn't. A lot of people will try to say Kinder, which I don't really understand because there's no N or R in the name, but I actually get called Kinder very often, which seems a little sketchy. That's just people being lazy. So yeah, we're going to talk about just kind of some basic steps and some basic things that small businesses need to think about when they start their business, and on the accounting. A lot of times, accounting is the last thing that gets taken care of.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the most fun topic when you're starting a new business. Usually, you want to get.
No, they really don't think about it, and I do a lot of training. I work with the SBDC and the ASBDC and work with the counselors there. I used to teach courses at the local community college and through the local SBDC as well, and do a lot of community ed training. I don't really do that too much anymore, but it was always one of the first things that I would ask the class, if it was not a group of accountants but a group of small business owners, is I'd ask them to raise their hand and say, how many of you started your business so that you could do a bank reconciliation every month? And I would usually be the only person to raise my hand because my business is a bookkeeping company. So, and then we kind of would go into just the basics here that we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome. Definitely eye-opening that nobody else would raise their hand, though.
Well, because most of them, if they're not accountants, they really didn't, they don't start their business so that they can do bank reconciliations. They start their business so they can build houses or, have a flower shop or do whatever it is that they do. And they really don't think about it. And this is one of the things that I really want them to kind of consider, is it's not just an accounting system, it's an entire back office system. And that's actually the first topic, is you really need to have that back office system in place. And you should have it in place and the processes in place early on. Because what I've seen so many times, I've been doing this since I was 17, since I graduated high school, and I've had my own business for 10 years, a little over 10 years, and I see it so many times, is they put the administrative and the accounting processes, they kind of push those off. Well, we don't have a huge staff yet, so we don't need it yet. Or, we're not that big yet, so we don't need it yet. And my big like I scream it, shout it from the rooftops, is that's when you need to get them in place, is before you need them, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're trying to hire a bunch of people and get your systems in place. You want to have that workflow and that back office in place so that when you are ready to start bringing on new hires and you do have a huge influx of new business, it's really easy and you don't have those growing pains that I see so many small businesses have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. So, like you said, their passion probably isn't the accounting portion, but what they actually started their business to do.
Definitely is not.
And I'm assuming if they do wait and put it off, it's a lot harder to backtrack and get all that stuff back in place after they get more established.
It really is, and that's the thing too, is it's very rare. I get really excited when I have a new client come to me. I get really excited when they say, oh, well, I don't have an accounting system, so I'm not using any sort of accounting software, but I do have everything in Excel. So I get really excited because at least they're tracking it somehow and they're paying attention to it. But more often than not, it's they keep it in their heads. You see it all the time. Oh, well, I know who owes me, and I have it in my head, and that's really not going to work. And when you get to the point where you need financing, or you want to apply for credit from anywhere, you have to. The bank isn't going to say, oh, it's just all in your head. Well, here, just write it down. So we really want to get it down and in place. And plus, you can't make any decisions about your business, if you don't have actual hard numbers to
Yeah.
look at.
And you don't want to show up to the bank with just a box of random receipts and stuff like that either.
No, that's okay for your CPA. And I can say that because I'm not a CPA, although all the CPAs that I know would probably want to choke me right now. Really not even good for that, because you're also going to pay more, that situation when you walk in with a box of receipts, you don't want that. You're not able to make really good choices, is a perfect segue into the next subject, which is being able to analyze your numbers.
Yeah, I imagine having like that back-end system and everything at least written down will give you a better track of, like, okay, you might know in your head how it's going and stuff, but realistically, when you see it on paper, it might make more of an impact for you. Like, oh, I'm overspending in this area.
Yeah, and that's exactly true. And what I always tell people is make sure that you analyze those numbers. Have your back office systems in place, which is one. And the second thing is look at the numbers and look at them often. Before you make any sort of business decision, you have to know your cash flow. You have to know your financial position. You have to sort of be able to look at your history to be able to sort of obviously do any sort of forecasting. So I've had so many small businesses say, well, I think I need 2 people to come in and work full time. You think, well, let's look at the numbers. What is it going to cost you? What are they actually going to be doing? Let's figure out what the process is for those employees, and then look at the numbers. Do the sales, do they justify that? Do you really need that? Or can you maybe get away with 2 part-time employees or 1 full-time employee? So let's take a look at everything before we make any decisions, and then kind of decide where we need to go.
Nice. So where do you recommend people start when they're getting going? What's the first thing they should do?
So the first thing that I recommend them do is to really create kind of a financial dream team, sort of a advisory team. When you're getting ready to start your business, or even if you've already started and you kind of, even if you've been in business for 10 years, it's never a bad idea to actually do this. But I think it's really important for small businesses to start out by getting what is going to be your advisory team. And they're not going to be somebody that you pay full time, that you're going to pay them, either on retainer or you're going to pay them as needed on an hourly basis. But get an attorney, get an accountant, have them assist you with any tax planning and financial planning. Talk to an accountant and find out what sort of business entity you need to be. Do you need to be an LLC, or is it better for you to be a corporation, an S corp, or can you just get by with being a sole proprietor? So you really want to make sure that you get all of that in place, and you have them in place so they can help you kind of look at the numbers and analyze, and especially for the planning. That's the biggest part. I see so many small businesses get in trouble because they don't talk to their accountant and do tax planning.
Awesome. So when you say like tax planning, just getting everything set for the year, making sure.
Yeah, so
They don't
one
care
of
if
the
we.
things is, oh,
Oh, I think we got you back. Sorry, it froze up on me for a second there.
sorry about that. So I think it's really important when you're talking about tax planning is what do you expect your revenue to be the first year, and what do you need to set aside? Are you going to end up owing at the end of the year? So let's estimate what your taxes are going to be so that we can plan for that, and not just for the first year, but every year going forward. Because the last thing that you want to have happen as a small business owner is to get hit with a huge tax bill at the end of the year, and you're scrambling and scrounging around trying to come up with the cash to cover that. So there's actually a really great book by an author. His name is Mike Michalowicz, and it's called Profit First. It just got released a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, and he talks about instead of paying yourself first and take that money out, or paying yourself last, take that money out first. So, and I have some clients who do that. They know that their cash flow is a little bit tight, so what we'll do for them is we'll set up maybe a separate checking account to pay their sales tax. So they know they'll do transfers at the beginning. Every time they make a deposit, whatever the sales tax they owe that day or that week, they just automatically transfer it from their operating account to their sales tax account, so it's not even there for them to spend.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then when that sales tax comes due, they write the check directly out of the sales tax account, and they're not kind of running around trying to pay for that. And we do a lot of that same, you can do that when you talk to your CPA and you talk to your accountant and you figure out, okay, what am I going to owe at the end of the year? And so throughout the year, you can sort of just, as soon as you have that revenue in, you just take that money out, completely out of the operating funds, and you set it aside so that at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter when you pay your estimated taxes, it's there and you don't have to worry about it.
That's really smart, kind of planning ahead and having that piggy bank set aside for everything.
Yeah, so many. It just doesn't happen very often. I wish it happened more often.
Well,
And
hopefully more people watch the show so they can start making it happen.
exactly. And you know what? You can do the same thing on a smaller scale with credit cards as well. I mean, there's little tricks that we have for my clients who don't like to have a running balance and pay interest on their credit cards, and they want to make sure that they pay it off. You know, they'll use, you know, whatever credit card that is to get miles or points or whatever. And plus, it's just a lot easier these days to pay with a card.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so what we do is, when we're looking at the credit card register and the balance increases in the credit card register in their accounting system, we actually will just sort of keep what amounts to sort of a fake check in their operating fund that mirrors that balance. So that money, when they look at the balance in their operating account, it's always less whatever the credit card balance is. And so then when the time comes to pay the credit card off, all they have to do is actually just print the check.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It keeps it like kind of front of mind too, so they don't forget about those bills later on as well.
Exactly. So there's a lot of little kind of tricks that you can do when we're talking about planning, and that's why it's really important to have that like dream team, and also to not do your own books. So, and that's kind of like another point that we're going to talk about.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you mean not do your own books? Why would you not recommend that?
So, and this goes to what we were talking about at the beginning, you know, when we first started, is did you start your business so that you can do a bank reconciliation every month? When I ask this question to small businesses, most of them don't raise their hand because that's not why they started their business. My dad was a small business owner. He was a builder. I can tell you right now he didn't start his business so that he could, you know, track his expenses and, you know, do his bank reconciliation and, you know, look at his, you know, financials and review them all the time. He started his business because he was a really good carpenter and he was a great builder. And that's why he did that. And when you talk to small businesses and small business owners, most of them are doing it because they have a passion. It's something that they really enjoy, something that they're good at. It's a need that they've seen in the market that they have found a way to fulfill or to fill up. And so unless bank reconciliations are your passion, which find someone, unless that's the case, and odds are it's not, find someone like me or another bookkeeper and have us come in and do it. In the end, it always saves so much like hair pulling and teeth gnashing, because what happens is small business owners, they don't do it on a regular basis. They sit down on a Sunday afternoon and they go through and they have to get all cut up when they would rather be doing something else, maybe going hunting, maybe spending some time with their family, maybe sitting there doing nothing but reading a book. And they can't do that because they're really frustrated because they're entering checks and they're entering credit card charges and they're re-entering invoices and they're just trying to get caught up on their bookkeeping, and they're never really in a place where they know everything is accurate and everything is current. So they can't really make good decisions about where they want their business to go.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So let me ask you, you said not everybody's passion is that. They obviously start their business to do what they want. Why is this your passion? Why do you like doing all this stuff?
I really don't know. So when I graduated high school, I had every intention of being a pharmacist.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to do. I was going to go to school. I was going to be a pharmacist. And I went to community college, and I started taking, you know, all the classes. I was taking like programming classes, C++ classes, and all this stuff. And I thought, well, I'm kind of good at this. And then I took my first accounting class. And this is so funny. The professor would assign the homework, and he would maybe say, okay, at the end of this chapter or this section, do all of the even numbers.
Yep.
And what I found I was doing was I was not just doing all of the even numbers, but then I would go through and I would do all the odd numbers too. So I was doing double the homework, and I was really good at it. It was really fun, because what a lot of people don't realize about accounting is it's not math, because everybody says, oh, I hate math. And I always tell them, I cannot math. I'm not good at mathing. I have computers and calculators to do that. Like, I struggle to figure out the tip half the time when I'm out at dinner. But accounting is really, it's like solving problems, and it's almost like putting a puzzle together. So you have to figure out where all the pieces go, and sometimes that's not as obvious as it would seem. And I think accounting is a really abstract kind of concept, and so it was just fun, and so that's what I do. And over the years, it's sort of evolved. I still like to do a bank rec,
Yeah.
and there's a weird satisfaction in clicking everything and marking everything cleared, and when you get done at the bottom having it say the difference is 0, there's a really weird kind of OCD odd satisfaction with that.
I can relate to that. Awesome. So you said it's kind of like a puzzle. You got to put everything together. Is that one of the hardest challenges? Just kind of figuring out like, oh, this fund should be classified as this, or what would you say is the most challenging part about this?
So the most challenging part, I think, for a small business owner is figuring out where it needs to go. A lot of times, they will use a personal card for business expenses, or they'll use a business card for personal expenses, and they get that and they see that maybe they're downloading their transactions into their bank feed, into their accounting system, and they don't really know what to do with it, and then they get really frustrated, and so a lot of times they just will sort of shut down because it's too much. I equate it, and this is really bad, to I have kids. When you give a toddler too much food on their plate, they kind of don't really know where to start, so you have to give them just a couple pieces at a time. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming, and I think that's how it is for a lot of small business owners. They just don't know where to start. Another good analogy is it's like I call it Mount St. Laundry. We used to have a laundry chute in our house, and we would drop our clothes down, and I would walk by it. I'd go down in the basement, and I'd walk by it, and I'd see this pile of laundry, like thigh-high pile of laundry, and just think, it's overwhelming, and you don't really know where to start with it. And I think that's what happens to a lot of small business owners. They have all these transactions and all of the stuff that they need to enter in, and they really aren't sure where it's supposed to go or what it's supposed to look like at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd get a little bit of like deer in headlights type of action if I had to start doing that.
Exactly.
So I'm assuming there's a lot of like tools or resources to help people out with this stuff. Do you have any that you recommend?
So yeah, I mean, I am primarily, I focus on QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks Online. I find that it's really, but there's a lot of other accounting software out there to choose from. But I like the online, I like the software as a service. I like that version the best, even though I started out with the desktop version. And what I found with any kind of online tool is that it makes it so much easier to work with my clients. So there's that. If you're trying to, and you're a small business owner, and you really don't know where to start, you can do something like Mint. It's free. There's FreshBooks. There's all sorts of other different pieces of the puzzle that you can do. Just an Excel spreadsheet. If nothing else, I tell them, you know what? Just start with an Excel spreadsheet. You can go on Google Docs and you can get it on your phone. I mean, we're almost exclusively online at my practice. So, the app for Google Docs is really great right now. So you can have a spreadsheet if you need to. So there's a lot of different tools out there, and a lot of training that's available to help the small business owners kind of get started. And one thing that I want to say is the local Small Business Development Center, the ASBDC and your local SBDC, probably one of the best places to start. They have coaches, they have counselors, they will help you, they want you to succeed. That is what those people do, and that's all that they're there for, is to help you succeed as a business owner in their community.
That's really awesome. That's good to know that there's those resources out there for everybody to kind of get going.
Yeah.
You're not on your own type of feeling, which I'm assuming, a lot of people that start their business like you did kind of feel that way at first a little bit.
Yeah, you do you tend to feel like you're maybe in a vacuum. And I mean, 10 years ago when I started, that was the case. I think it's not as bad now, because there's so many places where you can go to get help. You can go find a LinkedIn group. There's even like Reddit groups where like subreddits where you can go find that are specific to you, whatever your software is that you like, or that you're using, or the business that you run, the industry that you're in. So there's a lot of online resources and a lot of online communities too that will help, and most people are really great about sharing their knowledge and their experience. even if you may be, perceived as maybe being a, maybe a competitor of theirs, they're still really willing to kind of help and say, hey, this worked for me, why don't you try it?
That's awesome. That's really cool. So what else? What else we got to talk about today?
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is a really big one, I think, is it's really important for small businesses to set goals. If you're going to go get financing and you need to get funding, it's really important, obviously, to have a proper business plan. But if you're a small business and you're kind of bootstrapping it, set goals. For me, I used to, when I first started, it was just a notebook. I would just write down what I wanted to accomplish. What in the next 5 years, where do I want my business to be? What do I want to happen? And I'd break it down by year. And then when I was getting ready to start that year, I break it down into each quarter. Okay, so how do I accomplish these goals? Let's look at realistically what we can do. So set those goals just for you personally as the business owner, for your staff, and be very clear about what those goals are. Make a plan to reach those goals, but break it down into small bites. They're always easier to chew and swallow than trying to eat the whole thing all at once. So really break it down. And the thing too about setting goals is sometimes you have to course correct. There are times where I set out to do something, it never even occurs to me that it's not going to work. Like, it doesn't even cross my mind. Like, I want to do this, so I'm just going to go do it. And there are times when you have to realize, okay, this isn't working, and that's why it's really important for you to review those goals on a regular basis, for you, for your staff, for your business, and really include anybody that's working with you in setting what those goals are and where your vision is and where you want to head in the future, because obviously they have a vested interest, and you really need to have the input from your staff and the people that are working with you and for you as well. So I think goals is a big mention, like huge. Even if you just write it down on a piece of paper, that's all you have to do.
That's good. That's good advice right there. Especially, you said going out 5 years. I like that you broke it down, by year and then also by quarter. So it kind of goes back to your toddler analogy, just giving yourself small bites to start, basically.
Exactly. Small bites are always easier to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yep. And the other thing too, when you're talking about planning, is you really want to create a budget. Figure out. Sometimes it's very hard when you first start. So that's where finding a financial sort of advisory team and choose like an attorney and choose an accountant who have experience in your industry. If you are in the medical profession, obviously you don't want a CPA who specializes in real estate, right?
Yep.
Which I have seen happen. So you want to find that and really say, hey, you know what, I really don't have any idea what to expect. If you don't, be honest with them, even when it's not the greatest thing to have to say. Yep. And say, what can I realistically expect from starting this business? And you want to have an idea of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And do your research. That's what, I can't stress enough the SBDC. You can go in and you can do all sorts of research and do your due diligence. What is your market? Where is your target market? Where should you even, if you're going to open up a brick and mortar store, where should you put it? What's the best location? And is my target market anywhere near that? And if you're working primarily online, then you have to figure out a marketing plan and you have to budget for it. A lot of times marketing is one of the last things to get budgeted for because people just think, oh, I'm opening my doors and everybody's just going to come to me. And that's really not what happens. You have to let people know that you're there. So make sure, when you're doing the planning, create the budget and then review it often and make changes if you need to.
That's awesome. So, making the budget and everything so when you're talking about financial planning and getting all set to go, do you recommend like going out and getting like your loans and all that stuff covered first, or is that a conversation you talk to your officer and all that stuff before going out and doing all those actions?
So before you do your budgeting?
Yeah, so before you do your budget and like kind of put your plan, do you want to go out and see what you can get qualified for first, or do you want to just talk about it first, then go out and try and get qualified to meet it?
So I think that you need to really kind of figure out what that is, because if you don't know what your budget is and you don't know what you expect your revenue to be and you don't know what you expect your expenses to be, how do you know how much to ask for?
That's a good
So you
point.
can't just walk in to some place and say, I want some money. They're going to want to know, although that would be nice.
That would be really nice.
Really great. Like, hey, can I have a little bit of cash? So you want to be able to explain to whoever you're asking for funding from, this is what I need the money. I expect my revenue, and this is why you should give it to me. I expect, this is what I'm going to do with that money. Here's what I expect my expenses. Here's what I expect my operating costs to be, my overhead, and here's what I'm projecting my revenue to be. So you really have to do the planning before you actually go out and try and get the funding.
Gotcha. Yeah, that,
You
that
have to have it. They want it to look nice. Don't walk in with a box of scribbled pieces of paper. If you're a small business and you don't need funding, put your goals and all your budgeting and planning. It's fine if you just write it or put it in a spreadsheet, but you want something a little bit better if you're going to the banks.
yeah, you're going to be presenting not yourself, but also your business, so they need to make sure that looks good. That makes sense. Totally. Well, cool. What else do you recommend? What else we got for?
So always know your cash flow. This is a lot of times, really small business owners, they tend to know exactly where the money is going at any given time. But as you start to grow, you sort of lose a little bit of a handle on that, I have seen. And so I really always recommend knowing what your cash flow. Your cash flow is really vital to that planning and your budgeting. So if you've been in business for a little while, you're going to kind of know when you have ups and downs and when you're the ebbs and flow of your business. So for me, as a bookkeeping and apparel company, I know my busy season is just about to kick in. It's actually already kind of started, and we're about to get crazy. I don't do tax work, so I'm not traditionally busy from January to April like a CPA or an EA would be. I'm a bookkeeper, so I'm the one that gets all the stuff ready for the CPA or the EA to do their tax work. So for me and for us, busy season starts right about now. This is where people who maybe haven't been very diligent about their bookkeeping start to panic when they realize, oh my gosh, I haven't even opened up my accounting system other than to create an invoice since February. I haven't done a bank rec ever. And so make sure that you know that cash flow, and it's really important to planning and budgeting. So hire somebody, hire a bookkeeper, it doesn't matter, somebody that knows what they're doing so that you can have your cash position and you know your cash position all along. So know when you're busy and when you're not busy, and you can plan for that. So I know my busy season is coming up, so I know that we're going to probably bring in a lot more revenue between now and probably March. So the first quarter of the year is usually the busiest for me, and the second is usually the slowest, so it's pretty dead in the summer because people are... So I know that I want to make sure that I bank enough cash to be able to cover some of those months that might not be as busy. So just know your cash flow, because then you can kind of plan for that and you can sock stuff away. Like we were talking, set it aside if you know that it's going to be something that you're going to need later.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Definitely have enough set aside to get you through those dry seasons. That could be a real, deal breaker for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you see this a lot with seasonal work. Seasonal companies. If you're, landscaper, or last year we had an amazing winter here. If you had snow plowing, we had, where I live, close to over 100 inches of snow. We haven't had that in 35 years. So what was happening is a lot of the companies that were doing snow plowing had these contracts that they really haven't had to do much to earn that money, that contract money, for the last few years.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, we're sitting pretty. And so what we found is that they are having to readjust, and they're looking at all their numbers. We've had a lot of those kind of clients call us this year and say, hey, I need to kind of look at my history so that I can see and we can kind of budget for this and do this a little bit better. So it's kind of interesting to see how just things that you don't normally expect will impact businesses like that, and how they haven't really planned for it. And it's when that happens when they realize, oh, I should have been doing this all along, and you really want to get to them before they get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as you said, they're sitting pretty on those easy contracts. Then all of a sudden, their business expenses jump up because they have to do the actual work at that point.
Yeah, I mean they're doing like 4 times the work than they have been the last few winters. And I even told I have a client who does that, and I said, and he plans. He's pretty good. He looks and sees, what is expected for the winter, and he is the kind of person he doesn't like to do seasonal contracts. He does it on a per plow basis. So he was actually kind of sitting pretty, and he did okay last year. But we still went through and budgeted, and we planned. And I said, okay, let's all summer long. I said, let's make sure that you have enough reserve to get through that first month or so, because you're going to need to hire a couple extra people.
Hmm.
And so because we did that, we were able to set aside some extra cash. He didn't have to worry about covering payroll while he was waiting to get paid from all the extra work that they were doing, because he had to hire 2 other people.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. No snow out here in Arizona, by the way, so we don't have that issue
Yeah, I
necessarily.
know. I know.
But New York's getting hit pretty heavy with snow right now, I hear.
I
So.
know. I'm so glad I don't live in Buffalo. It's been snowing here all day. We have probably maybe half an inch right now. It's been.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I heard on the radio today some people have their door already covered halfway up. So.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
No, here it's just brutal cold. Like it's been 12 degrees for the last 4 days, and that's usually mid-January weather. So this morning I got up and the weather app said 14, and my favorite is feels like 0.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know what I'd do in 12-degree weather. I think we've been sitting at like a low of 50 the past couple of weeks.
that's no fun. Yeah, well, we're used to it. We live here in the mitten, so what are you gonna do?
Fair enough.
Yep.
Cool. So we have any other tips? I don't know if that was if we hit
I
all.
have a couple more. The
Okay.
other thing too is I really think that small businesses should embrace technology.
That's
Um, I think I'm an old lady. I just turned 40. I'm just kidding. I don't think I'm an old lady at all. But I just turned 40 last month, and I'm always really surprised when people who are my age are a little like think any kind of technology is a little sketchy,
yeah.
because like I understand it when they're like my mom's age, but for us, we've grown up kind of, watching it. And so really embrace technology. It really truly does make your life a lot easier. I had just had to have somebody come in and take a look at our furnace, because our furnace was acting a little sketchy and not really working the way it should, which is not good when it's 12 degrees. And I pulled out my credit card, and he said, "Oh, we don't take credit card." And I was like,
That's
I
my
didn't even know
fault.
how to react to that, because I don't carry cash.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, "Oh, I have to look to see if I have any checks left. I don't write checks.
Checks. Yeah.
I've been in business for 10 years, and I've never had paper checks for my business. And the checks that we have for our personal are like 2 addresses ago, and we lived at our old house for 13 years.
Yeah. That's got to really hurt their business as far as just getting it. So you got to make it easy for customers to pay, if anything.
Which is actually my next point, is make it easy to get paid. So embrace technology, and that goes hand in hand with making it easy to get paid. Don't say, if you accept credit card, don't say, "Oh, well, I don't take Amex."
Yeah.
Just take them all. I even have it set up where if I send you an invoice, you can pay me with Bitcoin at this point. I mean, nobody has, but the option is there if I finally get one client who wants to pay me with Bitcoin. It's really cool. Really make it easy and embrace the technology, because it makes it so much easier. If they had embraced and started taking credit cards, there's card readers right on your phone. There's GoPayment, there's Square, there's a ton of other mobile payments that you can use and take right onto someone's phone. Just do that. Online software is really amazing. There's, field service programs where if you are, that kind of repair person, you can push jobs out to the guys out in the field. And so if they're out doing a repair, or they're out at a client or on an appointment, and another one comes up in the area, you can just push it out to their phone, and that you don't even have to really deal with it. So there's a lot of those tools that are available out there. So just embrace technology, and hand in hand with that is make it easy for people to pay you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually even offer a service called Get Paid with our book.
Yes, you guys do.
Yeah, and I just posted a link in our Hangout there, so if anybody also wants to check that out, feel free. But yeah, definitely payment is easy. That's got to be really frustrating. I'd be like, what if you didn't have a check or cash? You'd be like, can I get you later?
I would be like, can you follow me up because I'm going to have to go to the ATM. So actually, I had 2 checks left in my checkbook.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good luck then.
Very good luck. But that makes me think like now I'm going to have to order I don't even want to. I just don't even want to order checks because I think it's such a waste. So
Well, it's not something you would think to even ask somebody, like, do you take credit cards? That's just assumed by most businesses.
I know. Well, my husband made the appointment, and if it had been me, I would have asked, just because it's what I do for a living.
Yep.
And so he didn't even. It didn't even. I don't even think he realized like to ask how to get paid. If he did, I don't know that he told me, or I don't remember, but he probably did, and then I don't remember. But yeah, so it's just very odd, especially if you're in the service business, in the repair industry like that. I mean, I never carry cash. I don't know. You're a guy, so you probably have cash.
I have a little bit of cash, but not like a ton to pay like a big bill or anything like that.
I never have cash. Like, I never carry cash. And my husband will always say, if you don't have at least $10 in your pocket, you might as well be a homeless person. It's really, really kind of funny. But I mean, there's so many people these days who don't. And now with Apple Pay,
Yep.
you don't need cash.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Cool. Well, what else is next?
that's kind of it. I mean, that's really all I wanted to, talk about. If you had any questions, those are really the points that I wanted to get across that I've seen over the last 10 years that a lot of small businesses really kind of need to focus on.
Awesome. Yeah, and you brought some great points. I think everybody's gonna really benefit from some of these. If any of you guys watching have any questions, feel free to post them. Give you guys a couple minutes to do that. And I'll be on the lookout on the YouTube page and on the Hangout page, or on Twitter if you're using the hashtag GD by chance. I know I didn't really promote that one too much for this event, but it's out there. But yeah, I think this has been some good topics. Everybody's gonna really benefit from watching this either now or later on. Thank you very much for taking the time to come out here and do this show with us.
Anytime. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
good. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll just leave with one last question, and then I'll see if anything came in. But over your past 10 years, what's been I guess the most standing out memory of a no-no that someone might have done?
Oh, I hope I can say this. I had a client who had a lot of online subscriptions
Okay.
to adult websites,
Okay.
and he was putting them on his business card so that his wife didn't see them come through on the personal card.
Oh, that's a no.
So that's not a legitimate business expense, and he argued with me about whether or not that was something that he could expense out, and I said absolutely, positively no.
Yep.
So that's probably the one that comes to my mind as far as like what clients do that's wrong. And usually it's kind of, that's just a really specific example of, if you have a business card, just keep your business expenses on it, and don't kind of commingle the personal expenses on your business card. I mean, we can split it out as business, as bookkeepers, but it's a lot easier just to keep all the business on one and all the personal on the other.
Yeah, and then you have to go through and sort and look at it line by line even more.
And then you have to have, like, if it's something that you're not really sure about, then you have to have that conversation with the client.
Yep.
And I'm the kind of person who I have no problem making it as awkward as possible.
Yeah.
So I was really so like, what are these? And then I would say whatever it said on the charge exactly. I'm like, what is that? So, just kind of keep your business and your personal. So that's probably the biggest standout that I've seen.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I guess that kind of brings up the point. There are no secrets when it comes to your financial stuff, and you have a bookkeeper.
You know what? And that's really funny that you say that, because there are a few clients where I feel like I might know them a little bit better than maybe their spouses know them. And it's not something that I really sometimes feel comfortable with. So, because you see what they're spending, a lot of times, it always happens, the personal with the business, and as much as you tell them don't do it. But sometimes I feel like we know our clients as well, if not maybe sometimes a little bit better in some ways than their spouses do.
That's true. Your financial statements do say a lot about you.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I did get a comment from Alan Shaw. He said the weather is tropical in New England, not. Can you recommend an online accountancy software package for idiots?
An online accountancy software for idiots?
That is what he said.
Boy, I don't really think that there is one. I would have to, I'm always going to go to my QuickBooks. I mean, that's what I do. And I think QuickBooks Simple Start is a really great way to start out. It depends on what kind of business it is they need. So it might be something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, like I said, or something free like mint.com where it just pulls in the bank and the credit card fees and you can point it in.
Yep.
And there's also a new one that Intuit just came out that's called QuickBooks Self-Employed. And if you're a sole proprietor, it's like drop dead easy and it's ridiculously cheap. I want to say it's like less than $20 a year. So those are, I would say, Mint, QuickBooks Simple Start, and QuickBooks Self-Employed are the easiest ones that I know of.
That's awesome. And then Alan, I also put into our bookkeeping there too. We like to think it's pretty simple, so feel free to check that out as well.
Yes. Oh yeah, you guys too.
Yeah, you got plenty of options out there. Feel free to browse them all.
Yep.
But yeah, and I don't see anything else coming in, so I think we're all right to go ahead and wrap up for now.
All right.
But yeah, thanks again for coming out, Stacy. It was really awesome. I promise I won't call you Kinder or anything like that next time. So.
If you did, I'd be like, hey, what's up? I would know exactly what you were saying. So thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it, and I had a good time.
Awesome, no problem. And yeah, thank you everybody for watching. We have another hangout tomorrow with Sean Funder. It's 10 tips to fill your customers' shopping carts for holiday shopping. So be sure to tune in that, and hopefully you can get some extra business ideas out of that. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.